Adresss at 6:40.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Y2K, how can we prepare?
Stop a few of their machines and radios. Throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We are fighting for our lives. My family must survive.
Oh, for 5 years. 1,000 gallons of gas, air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada. Streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, and Odyssey. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim. Today is May the 12th, 2023, and this is episode 306 of Workshop Radio. So how the hell is everybody out there? Oh, it's been a busy day. We were running around tonight till about 3 seconds before we went live. One of them nights, so it's always good. Got a lot of shit done today, guys, and it is exciting. We got a special one coming up here in a minute. Tonight's going to be a reverse interview where Erin from Two Chicks Homestead. Wow, try that again, Tim. Erin from Two Chicks Homestead, not Two Ticks Homestead. Although I've heard stories. So anyway,
said two tits.
Yeah. Oh, that's even better. Oh boy. Anyway, so she's coming on in a minute. She's going to interview myself and Mrs. Toolman, who's floating right next to me here. But before that, we'll get our announcements out of the way. Number one, Thrivalist Fair, guys. If you want to meet up in person, we're going to be doing a workshop meetup there around the fire Sunday evening, May 28th. But the event is May 28th, 29th, Addy, Washington. It's a day's drive from here. So if we can make it in a day, anybody can make it in a day. Well, not really, but $50 for the whole weekend for an entire family. Camping is provided there on site. I'm excited. If you want tickets, Thrivalists, THRIVALISTS.org. Secondly, silver. So we have launched the 2023 Workshop Silver ounce and half an ounce. They're half spoken for. So 10 of the 20 that I'm selling as a 1.5 are spoken for. They're going to be $100 this time because silver's been up when we bought it. Kind of sucks, but it is what it is. This is going to be the only workshop silver coins for 2023. We may end up having another special run of maybe some of that apocalypse currency I've been talking about. We'll see from there, but this is going to be the only one. So if you want to get on the list, you better let me know soon. They're half gone. And finally, today's tool. This is something I don't think I've talked to you guys about before, but I friggin' love them. They're called the GRK screws. And if anybody out there hasn't tried them, they're awesome. Turns out they're also a Canadian invention, but they're structural screws. They're kind of like that hot sauce, you put that shit on everything. These screws are just like that. About a year ago, the guy at the hardware store talked me into them. He's like, if you buy them, you're never going to regret it. And he's right. I use them for everything. So I've been using these 4-inch, and I said they're structural. So they're not like regular deck screws that you can't use to, hold things up, only hold things down. Well, 5/16 thick. They take a Torx drive bit, and those things will hold, I'm sure they'd hold a Volkswagen to the side of a house. So anyway, check them out. I got the link here tonight, 100-pack from Amazon. So with that, let's throw everybody up on screen here. Give me 1 second, see if I got the right. There we are. Hey, Mrs. Cook, how are you?
Hey, just texting the girls because Barrett's here, and I want him to make sure he brings the bananas and the oatmeal home, but I don't think he's getting...
It's all right.
Is that Amy there, too? Or
Don't worry about it. We'll
I just don't want them to forget their stuff. So.
Yeah. So who do we got below us here? We got Erin. How are you, Erin?
Good. How are you?
Not bad. So this show tonight has been a long time in the making, hasn't it?
Yes.
So how did this start? Was this your idea originally?
I think it was.
Okay.
I think I opened my big mouth and
then I wouldn't let you live it down, right?
Yep.
Because I'm good like that. I'm a bit of a dick, aren't I, hon? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it is what it is. So we did this one time before, and it was very successful. Not with you, though. It was right. Lamppost Collective on Instagram. It was just her, though. We didn't have him and her, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And basically the idea behind this is somebody who might be a little nervous to go out and do their own interviews to start with. Because, Erin, you have a podcast, right?
Yes.
Yes, you and the bearded chick, right?
Right.
Yes.
The one with no tits, yeah.
Yes, no tits.
Or ticks, or anything.
I said ticks. No,
you didn't.
I did, yeah. This is what happens when you work all day out in the sun, and then you come. No, I'm just kidding. So, yeah, and it's called Two Chicks Homestead.
Right.
And you'd like to get into doing interviewing occasionally, right?
I mean, I think it just, yeah. I mean, this needs to be applied to my whole life because I am not a talker. I don't like, if I'm talking, I can't, my biggest problem is processing quickly what the person is saying so I can have a nice witty comeback that everybody seems to like. So that's my biggest obstacle.
It's fine because I'm never funny and people still laugh at me. So I think it's just because they feel sorry for me. So if you play that up, you'll do fine. So, but it's true. It's fun to get to do.
That was a laundry basket.
Yep. In case you guys are wondering, it's been an absolute disaster here today. So,
yeah.
True living. Erin was so polite and patient. She's just waiting there. I forgot to mute the microphone. We're running around doing laundry in the basement. It's just a real life kind of night. So.
Yeah, and just to fill everybody in, it was like 8 loads of laundry that just went up the stairs. So
oh no!
That's what I'm doing tonight.
Because again, something to look for. And maybe do your kids do laundry yet, Erin?
No, not yet.
No. Okay. So what ours did today was
they're helpful.
They're helpful, but
yeah, mine help.
Yeah.
Ours, when they want to, can really kick ass. But I come down tonight and there was 2.5 laundry baskets sitting on the floor with about 12 loads of clean laundry on top of it. So, yeah, Cabot says they're walking into a disaster. So, no, not at all. So,
no.
You know what? Oh, no, I can't move it around. Okay, anyway. So, why don't we get started? So, Erin, what do you want to get out of doing this?
I just want practice. I mean, when we were doing Fireside,
yes,
that was like a weekly opportunity. And I kind of miss that because I don't do a lot of live streams because the kids always want me and it's much easier for Nate to, do them without having kids screaming in the background that they want him. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just, it's less pressure because everyone knows I'm doing this because I'm nervous. And it's not like, hey, I need to act like this is all professional and I'm not going to look like an idiot. So
Amy says she adores your hair, and I think it's friggin' incredible as well. So, I mean, it would have been nice if you'd have asked me, before copying my haircut. But
I know
it looks. I love it. It is.
I'm just working. I'm working on the beard next.
You want to fill in or fit in with Nate?
Yeah, you don't want this.
No, you don't want. She doesn't even want that. So. But no, this will be fun. So let's turn it over to you, Erin. So go ahead.
All right. Well, I have some questions.
I saw that.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Tim, do you have a routine that you did in the beginning or even do now to kind of get in the zone of doing a show that doesn't include laundry?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's gotten easier. You totally didn't see the normal routine tonight.
Yeah.
So, okay. We'll start with, Thursday episodes, I kind of treat them a little bit different. They typically, other than like the other night, they have a lot of prep work. So, like if it's a disaster episode where I'm talking about, like a natural disaster or the history of prepping, those are like maybe 6 to 8 hours worth of prep work. But kind of the normal, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, I would say about a 2-hour prep time. So I would come down about 5 o'clock, right, baby? I usually, by 5 o'clock, I come down and put my notes together, put all the different, so Rumble, if you guys don't know about Rumble, you can only set up your live stream 24 hours ahead of time. So it has to be done before, right before the show. Whereas all the other ones, like Erin was always at me, she said, you should put your, events, or you like the events on Facebook. Yeah. So I do all those. I try to do, a couple of weeks in advance. So I get those done. But yeah, I come down, I'd say maybe an hour. I put together my show notes. And then after that, it's, all right, share the links on social media, link it or pin it in the Telegram group. If I have a little bit of time, I'll post a few things to Instagram. And then usually by about 6:30, I'll go up and walk around the house for a couple of minutes just to get out of my seat before, I got to get into it, And when I first started, the first few weeks, I would like talk to myself beforehand, like, okay, this is going to be a kick-ass show. You're going to do great. It's going to be awesome. Just kind of like a pep talk, right? Mm-hmm. Eventually you just kind of get comfortable, and that kind of went by the wayside. But I bet you for the first 6 months that I did live streams, I would, about 2 minutes before I'd go live, I'd just like close my eyes and talk to myself and be like, okay, it's going to be a great show, just to kind of, get over the nervousness and the jitters and stuff like that.
Except for when I come down here with him and then he's hauling up 12 loads of laundry.
That is very true.
Hey, at least I wasn't
do this before you get on the computer.
So fucking true. Does that answer?
Yeah. Yes, it does. Do you know Crystal Morley? Did you meet her at LFTN? Okay.
I have her on Facebook, yeah.
She's from Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Not too far from where Becky was born.
Actually, she's right on Port Huron.
Oh, Port Huron. Yeah, so she's the American side of where Becky was born.
Okay. All right. She posted the other day about the cold showers. Did you see that? How she's now taking like 5-minute, like pure cold showers.
No, I did see it. And Nicole's doing it too, right?
Oh, maybe is Nicole doing cold
I don't know.
I don't know.
That. Maybe. But she kind of made it like, to get out of your head, and you were focused on like just dealing with the cold. So I thought that was kind of neat that I tried that tonight, and I think it kind of helped. I don't know.
Did it?
Just to kind of get away from the nervousness and get out of your head. Because that's one of my biggest problems is I get so stuck, and it just like keeps unraveling up until right before. And then
I get it. I do. And that's why, was it Saturday night? That's why I'm like, okay, it's going to be Friday night, Erin. So you wouldn't have to wait and think about it for like 3 or 4 weeks. I'm like, okay, let's get it 6 days out. I said, I know she's still going to stress a little, but hopefully I can make it a little better for her,
Well, I know yesterday, it started really getting bad yesterday. And I told myself, nope, I'm going to not let it come in until today. So then it was like, well, this morning I'm like, okay, no, now it's not going to come in until this afternoon. And then I can be nervous for a little while because I have to let it go through the whole thing.
When I'm public speaking, I like to have, 10 or 15 minutes before I go up on stage, if I can help it, to just kind of walk around. And I don't most times get super nervous anymore, except the library. I was nervous for my local event, but weird. Well, just because it was people, people from here that right? But yeah, I like to, Dave, Jack's best friend at SRF. He's like, oh, I see. He says, I see you do the pep walk before you talk, do you? And I was like, I never thought about that, but yes, I do. He's very observant. I love that dude. And he has the cutest dog in the world other than my dog. So.
I used to do weddings back when I had my first baby. I went through training to become a life cycle celebrant to write wedding ceremonies and perform them and do as an officiant. And I loved it because when I stood up, I had the ceremony in front of me and I had all of my things written down and all the cues, and I could just read it. And I wasn't thinking. I just had to read it and do it, and it was fine. But it was always getting to know the couple and then getting there and having to chit chat. That's always my biggest thing, is just all the small talk and trying to not just talk about the weather all the time.
But you're good at it. I mean, we remember all the small talk we did at LFTN. You wouldn't shut the hell up, so you did good.
See, I don't know. I don't know if I remember it that way. I'm making that for you.
I know. You get
no, I'm seeing rings now. Can you turn it down?
Yeah, sure. Hang on.
Thank you.
There you go. All right. Yeah. I didn't want her to sit in the dark. I didn't want you to be alone. Okay. So yeah, no. So that's kind of where I prep anyway, for sure.
Are there any certain questions that you always ask when you do an interview?
Yeah, well, the first one is, it's a good icebreaker, and I found it pretty early on. But the what did you do for your first job in high school? That seems to be something that gets their eyes to light up, So because it's a memory, right? You got nostalgia, and it kind of breaks the ice early on. It relieves the tension. It puts people at ease, and it's fun. Who doesn't want to hear about Bill Fortune, the guy that wrote 1 Second After? His first job was working at racing stables, horse stables in New Jersey when he was like 13 years old. So you can imagine the mafia stuff he probably saw, you know, in New Jersey in the 60s, because he was born in 1950, I believe. So that's one. One I've been I come back to quite often now is, especially when I'm talking to entrepreneurs, I love to, once they've told me their story, I love to ask them something along the lines of, so what do you think, you know, yourself 10 years ago would think about where you are today, you know, or, you know, with one I remember really good was John Bush. When I interviewed him, I said, what do you think that the John Bush who was living on a school bus because he, you know, couldn't afford to live anywhere else would think about the John Bush today who has dreams of owning a private plane? And I like that question because it really brings people, it brings them back, but it really opens them up. You know, they people love to talk about it, and for me, no matter what question I ask, I always keep asking questions until I find the thing, and I always say it, that makes their eyes light up, the thing that they showed up to talk about. And you know, for some people it might be food preservation, for some people it might be entrepreneurship, and for some people it might be Transformer toy collecting. I don't know, but whatever it is that they are drop dead passionate about, if my questions get to that point, I'm happy.
That works. Becky, what was your biggest hurdle in starting your business?
My biggest hurdle?
Yeah. We had getting started with, I mean, we almost gave up, but I mean,
yeah, well, personally, I think one of the biggest hurdles that I would face, honestly, is probably being a woman. And I find that because when you go to, like, that's why they, like, when you look in the government sites, they have so many entrepreneurships and grants and stuff for like women in business and everything, is because women get turned off really easily. And like you, Erin, I have a hard time talking with people, and I have a hard time, I don't know, I guess you could say I have a hard time, like, I don't really have, like, I have a hard time making friends, right? Like, because I'm very, like, I'm extroverted, but I'm introverted at the same time. Maybe that makes sense. But being in a small town where we're not from,
it's tough.
That made it a lot more difficult. Because, like, you know, you're in a small town, you don't know if you're going to be accepted, and you don't know if you're going to fit the mold of everybody in this town, which obviously we don't. But, you know, we do the best we can. But I found trying to talk to a lot of contractors and men and everything like that, it's a lot more difficult, I think, for a woman. And there was several times I would be like when was it the building inspector?
Yeah, it was.
I made Tim go down because he sounded like a complete asshole.
And he was.
So I'm like, can you go down and deal with him, because I don't want to deal with him, because. And then of course Tim fell down the stairs in front of him. It was so funny. He tells me it's a safety inspector, and he goes right down here, and he goes right down the whole flight of stairs.
Oh my god!
He was wearing big ass winter boots, yes. And I called the guy out on his dickishness, and he relaxed a little, and then I fell down the fucking stairs. There you go.
But like, even with the inspectors, like the fire inspector and everything, I made sure Tim was there, right? Yeah. Because I find if you're by yourself, they kind of, and you don't like to say it, but a lot of them, they treat women like they're stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's frustrating, right? Because, like, and of course, and then you come off as being really bitchy and stuck up because you're trying to defend yourself, and like, and you don't want them to treat you like you're stupid, but some of them just do. And so a lot of the inspectors and everything, I made sure Tim was there with me.
Yeah.
Just so they didn't talk down. And same with a lot of the contractors. And like, a lot of the younger contractors are good.
Yep. Because
they're all, you know, about our age, and they have wives and stuff.
Yeah.
I find it's like the 60 plus crowd. They kind of like, they're a little bit more demeaning.
Yeah.
And stuff when it comes. And I don't understand. I mean, I think different generations, right? Like, maybe they think that a woman should be home, and you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. But no, I like that. I think that was probably the biggest hurdle. But now I'm at the point now where they'll call me and they talk to me directly. So it's just because they know I'm the one that signs the checks, and he does.
They don't worry about me anymore.
No, they want to get paid. They got to talk to me.
Right.
So,
Yep.
yeah, but no, that was probably the biggest one.
And you sorry, go ahead.
I just said I'm just a pretty face now.
You started it during COVID, right?
Actually, we opened March 1st, 2020.
So like
2021, sorry.
Okay, I was going to say right before. Okay.
Yeah, it was right in the height of COVID, yeah.
Just as they were talking about shutting down daycares again, and and every friggin' week there was a new rule or regulation that we had to follow. It was fun, wasn't it, baby?
Yeah, but we just figured we were home anyway, so we're sitting at home, and my sister had her little guy, and they weren't supposed to be, but they were at our house anyway. So I was like, well, we might as well just go hang around at the daycare and watch a couple kids, right? And make some money at it. So, and that's what we did. But then we got shut down because then COVID came through, and it's like.
But we figured from the start that if we could launch a daycare during a pandemic and keep it alive, we figured then we're probably setting ourselves up to do quite well down the road.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of support too, because Amy's mother-in-law gave us really cheap rent.
Right.
And she gave us and we helped, and the utilities were all in her name, so we just paid what we used, and so like we were basically a shoestring budget, right?
I mean, it was everything
everything was from IKEA, and everything that we bought, yard sales, and Amy and I split everything 50-50. So when we got because she was still on mat leave, so when she got her EI for mat leave, she would spend $300 towards stuff, and I would spend $300. It was just
at the end of the month when the all-season maintenance money would come in.
It was gone.
We would buy a bunch of everything we got. Every penny we made went into that, and but it was cool. I remember because we'd budget. I forgot about that, but it was we're about 5 months doing the renos and stuff, and so every 2 weeks to every month it would be okay, honey. Well, when we get this money, go up to Lloyd. We're going to buy glue and flooring and trim, and that is what's in the budget. So do it, and we'll be done with it.
Yep.
And then you found a yard sale. There was a daycare shutting down in a city nearby us.
Oh, nice.
We went up, and you stood in line for a long time.
Yeah,
my God.
Because it was like a COVID yard sale.
Oh.
So they were only allowing 10 people in at a time, and it was so miserable. But
you got a bunch of stuff.
I got a bunch of stuff, and then I got those great big huge $900 carpets for $150. They didn't go the first time, so I called them back when they posted again, and they said they were $150 each the first time around. And then I went back when I called them. I said, "Listen, will you take $150 for both, and I'll come get them right now?" They're like, "Sure." So I went they're $1,800 worth of carpets for $150, but. Yeah, everything was shoestring, and we made it all work. But.
So the people that originally would bring kids in, were they because they were working at home, or were things open still?
A lot of them were still. Well, the one lady was working from home. She was an accountant.
Yep.
And her boy was really busy, so she couldn't get basically any work done with him there. And then we had some hospital workers, which
they're essential.
Yeah, and then we had, but we didn't have very many kids. We only had 5.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah, so they were just, one was working at a licensing place, so she was working, and
because there was still a need for it.
There was, but a lot of people weren't working.
And we kept telling ourselves, okay, when they open everything back up and people go back to work, it'll get better. And then it did. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, okay, well, when the government finally cuts off the COVID money, it'll get better. And it didn't, but then it did, So, we just had to hang in because we were close to throwing in the towel, weren't we?
Yeah, it was just before Christmas.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, because we got to the point where we're just it's just not working.
Yeah, we said, I think I can't remember. I've told the story a few times. I believe it was to the end of January, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We said we were going to give it, and if we didn't, and then
this last January?
Was
it
I think it was
2 Januaries ago.
2 Januaries
right.
ago. Yeah. So it was 2 Januaries ago, and we were like, okay, we'll go to. I think it was it was either the first of the year or January 31st. I can't remember. And we're like, if it doesn't pick up, we'll reevaluate. That was our turn. That was our pizza party. It was the four of us, Becky and me and her sister and my brother-in-law, her sister's husband, and that's what we did. We just we said we're going to keep going, but we're going to reevaluate, and things got good. So
because the government introduced all the new money.
There was some new subsidies come in, which but it was really good because people were going back to work. They'd cut off all the COVID money, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, we're going to introduce some subsidy for daycare spaces. So it was like this perfect storm.
So people will go back to work.
Yeah. It was kind of like, so it was good. We were excited. Yeah. Cabot says it's just not working until it's working. Yeah, that was exactly it.
Yeah, and we were just up in Lloyd today, and we just, I guess verbally, we haven't done it on paper yet. We just verbally signed a contract with a new building up there too.
I was going to ask if you were opening up another one. I thought I saw something about that.
Yeah, we were just up there today, and the new landlords are going to renovate it the way we want it, and which is
cool because we haven't even had a chance to talk about that yet. So I get to find out while we're here. So
yeah, we're super stoked about that. So
that's awesome. I mean, you never would have thought at the time probably that.
No.
You'd have location.
We honestly, when we first started it, we knew there was a need, but it was mainly to give you and Amy something that you could do, so you had a job that made money, so that you didn't have to work for anybody else, because we wanted that independence, right?
Exactly. Well, and Amy, like with her little guy, she went when she had her oldest boy, that's Noah. He's going to be 10 in August, and she went right back to work as soon as he turned a year old. And she said that she felt bad because she missed a lot of those milestones after he turned a year old. So there's quite a gap between Noah and Adam is going to be 4 in July. And when she got pregnant with him, and she just she didn't want to go back to work, but she wanted to spend more time with him because it was her last baby, and she just didn't want to miss out on all that. And she goes, but you still have to pay your bills, right? And that's why and I told her, I said, well, why don't we do babysitting? And then her mother-in-law was like, well, use the basement of my church because I'm not doing anything with it. So, and then it allows, but now we've had the daycare open for 2.5 years, and she's had that whole time with Adam, and
nice.
It's been good for her.
And now Amy's mother-in-law is eventually going to work at the daycare with these guys. So they bought the building from her. She gave us rent-free until we opened the business. So we had a few months to renovate, then give us a killer deal on rent while we were getting our feet under us, and then eventually offered it to us for a decent deal, a fair price on both sides. The women bought it, and she kind of shut her business down. It was a photo studio upstairs, or at least cut it way back. And now she's going to be working at the daycare with these guys. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. All right. Let's see. We'll kind of bounce back and forth.
Sure.
So, Tim,
yes.
What is the most stressful thing about content creation?
It's like, what was that movie? The one where It Follows. Have you ever seen the horror movie It Follows?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so I think it's a horror movie. It's an allegory for an STD, but the idea behind it is, yes, there's a reason for this. She's going to laugh at this. So the only way so a demon follows you all the time. It's kind of like Jason in the old Friday the 13th movies. No matter how much you try to get away, it's always following you, right? So It Follows, same thing. There's always this demon over in the corner just slowly walking toward you, right? That's what content creation is like. There's always a deadline over in the corner. No matter, you can ignore it if you want, but eventually it's going to jump up behind you and slit your throat if you don't pay attention. So that's what it is. People, I always say the easiest thing or the simple thing is to just make content on a regular basis. But, I know 4 days a week there's a live stream, and I know every Wednesday a review video has to be out. And that, it's the constant crunch it's always over your shoulder. You can do things like hop in a car and drive a long ways away for a couple hours, but it will catch up with you. You know, I can do things like make 4 videos in a month or in a week and have them all set, but eventually that deadline keeps coming. That's what it is. And if you can embrace it, great, because that is it. It's like a rock that just kind of keeps wearing on you a little bit at a time.
Yeah, I know. The only thing we have that's actually scheduled is the podcast. Like, we know every weekend we have to do it because it's coming up. We post it on Wednesday night.
Sure.
And then life kind of happens, and we went back to twice a month, just to kind of give us time in between. But it was still always, gosh, we got to think of something to talk about because there's not a whole lot going on. And unless you want to hear about what my 6-year-old didn't eat for dinner that week, but that's not why people listen to us. But I always find it like, that's all I have scheduled. Everything else is just kind of put up whenever. But I'm always thinking like, I should be recording this. This would be awesome. I should have started from the beginning. And now I'm halfway through and the kids are going to want lunch soon. So just kind of.
I'll agree with you there too, because a lot of times, I don't know, it might have been Jack. I heard him say one time, but it takes 2 to 3 times as long to record something as it does to do it. And I do a lot of shit in the run of a week that would make great TikToks. I just don't stop to record it. And, you know, I may, you know, at some point when the content becomes a full-time thing, I may incorporate more of that in the day-to-day, but it's tough because sometimes you just want to, I think I've heard Amy say this before too. Sometimes you just want the project to be your project. You know, you just want it to be your thing, and it doesn't have to necessarily be something that you're going to share, you know, and not because you're secretive about it. It's just, sometimes it's enjoyable to just do shit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. I totally lost what I was going to say.
That's okay. Amy says, not that you don't want to share your whole life, but maybe someone wants to hear that you have kids that don't want to eat something too. People love you because you're real. And that is very true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Amy's recent podcast about lifesteading versus homesteading has really helped both Nate and I kind of go, okay, yeah, our podcast is called Two Chicks Homestead Podcast, but that doesn't mean we only have to talk about gardening, butchering, or whatever. It can be, I mean, our homestead is where we live, so it can be really anything.
And I think content creation, beyond anything else, is a creative outlet too. And if it ever becomes, I mean, I'm not saying it isn't a chore at times or it's not a job, because it is a job when you're doing it. But if it ever gets to the point where you don't enjoy it or it's constantly kind of wearing on you, change something up, you know, because first and foremost, you're making it for yourself. It's great to know that other people want to hear about it. But if I'm not enjoying a tool review video, why the hell should I, you know, why would I be doing them? Right.
Yeah.
I see that. Yeah. So, yes, Yozik just said, when is Becky starting her own channel called Today in Daycare? Or, believe it or not, Tim did this today.
I've actually threatened to start a podcast. I have. But the problem with me is I rant and I ramble. And I don't know, maybe people might like it. But like,
have you heard Alex Jones?
I can sit and talk for hours about nothing. And like, I don't know if people would like that. I don't know. But I could talk all day. And if it's something I'm passionate about, I don't know if people would actually listen to that. Because I can get pretty saucy, so I don't have, like,
I think you do well.
Like, we could see, but yeah, like, I'd like to start one, but I don't know what program I have to use. I don't even know what.
That's the toolbox fallacy. We've talked about that. I tell her, I'll show you anything you want to know, sweet pea.
Well, I barely got 4 phone calls in today, so I don't have time right now. So.
Cabot says, I want, believe it or not, what Tim did today. So
you don't.
You're all turning again. Yeah. Believe it or not, Tim left a pry bar. This wasn't today, but this happened a while back. Tim left a pry bar on the top of his 10-foot step ladder, went to move the step ladder, said pry bar come down and hit Tim on the top of the head, split him open, and required glue.
Or this one, believe it or not, Tim was opening a package with Patrick Rohrman's knife and sliced his finger open, and now we're just getting over an infection. So.
Good thing it comes with those little steri strips, right?
I know. I still. This is the first time I've ever cut myself with Pat's knife. So, Nate said, this is a quote from John Willis, said, I put out content because no one puts out my content I need to hear. When someone puts out this content, I'll quit. I believe it. Yeah.
That would be my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Said you could do something like this. Haas said you could do what Jack did once, 5 minutes with Jack.
I can't stop 5 minutes. That's the problem.
Now you have 2 shows already. Okay, I'll shut up. Go ahead, Erin.
I mean, there are nights where we go, okay, we're going to do just a 20-minute thing, just get it done and move on. And it ends up being an hour.
Yes.
And all of a sudden we've been babbling, and we have a bad habit of not listening before we post it. So we record it, and then 3 days later or whatever, it's going up, and we don't really listen to it.
No, I do the same thing. It's live. I do it. Well, you guys see it. I do it in one take. And you get, I don't know if I've ever edited anything out of the live unless we had I think maybe when I had Man Tracker on, there was some long pauses where the internet kicked out on his end. I think I edited that out, but whatever, it's there. People want to hear it. They can skip over it or, you know, it's my thing.
Let's see. So Tim,
yes.
When did you get into prepping?
Well, it was before we met, actually. It started before we met.
And then I fed the disease.
Yeah, we fed off each other. It was kind of cool. You go in waves, right? I joke that, my Pat's been prepping since Y2K, I wouldn't say I've been prepping since Y2K, but that's probably what ended up pushing me over the edge, thinking about...
What year was... Well, duh. I'm thinking of... Yeah, okay, never mind. Forget that. Let's delete that.
Yeah, so don't worry about it. I was 18. So I was 18. I was just in college. I remember that. And I remember mom and dad. I remember a lot of people like, well, we're going to fill the bathtub. We're going to buy bottles of water. Nobody really knew, and it was scary. But then I went away to college, didn't think much about it, moved home, and had my own apartment, a second-floor apartment. It was huge. It had 2 bedrooms, a great big living room, and a huge kitchen that I had a coach in my kitchen because random 22-year-old guy, right?
I'll just interrupt you there.
Yeah.
When I met him, he had 6 couches.
Yeah.
I don't know what single man needs 6 couches.
I had a great, I always called him my adopted grandfather, Poe. He's long passed away, but he used to find, he's a lot like me. He'd be like, hey, we got to go clean up this property. Any of the furniture we get, Tim, you can have for your apartment when you move out. And so we saved all the couches. He put them in a garage for me for about 3 months until I moved into my place. So I had some of the best coaches in the world. But
6 of them.
Yeah. Anyway, so one day I'm like, hey, I'm going to go pick strawberries. So then I asked my grandmother if she'd help me make strawberry jam. And then I had to find jars. So I went into Mom's dirty old third basement, the worst one that they had, and found these old jars from the 60s that were full of cobwebs and dirt. We used those, and then it kind of expanded from there. Then it was pickles, then it was homebrew. It was just teaching myself skills. And then I just the bug bit me, and I felt like I really needed to be prepared. And I don't even know if I knew it was called prepping for a few years. That, I probably learned that, I don't know, maybe around 2010, 2011. I know I found Jack around 2013. I was working from home doing computer software sales. It was fun. I enjoyed it, but I had a lot of dead time. And that's when I discovered the joys of podcasts. So I would listen to them in my speakers until I'd get a call from somebody, hey, sell me some software. But in between, so I searched prepping podcast at the time, and Jack came up. And then, of course, the whole time we were together, when we had kids, we were broke-ass poor. So, what some people call prepping, we just called everyday life, because if we didn't have the toilet paper closet, the kids weren't going to be able to go to the bathroom, and there were a couple times that we came awfully close to having to go to the food bank, and our prep saved our asses. So yeah, it was out of desperation, right, baby?
Well, my prepping was different than yours.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, my prepping before I met Tim, mine was motivated by fear. And that was because growing up, we never had a lot. And there was times like my parents were just like, like they did what they could, but it was like only groceries once a month. And like before the end of the month, it would be like there would be absolutely nothing in the house. Right. So and they never had anything to back it up or anything. And I found like my sister, brother, and I, we all developed unhealthy obsessions with food because of it. And like it got to the point where we're like, you're hiding food in your room and hiding food in your nightstand and stuff like that because it got to the point where you're like, well, if I don't hide it, I'm not going to get it. So it developed an unhealthy relationship with food and and then when the kids came along, it was like I never wanted them to have that. Mm-hmm. So then it was like the whole okay, but we didn't do it right.
Sure, not at first.
Because I never ever wanted them. So I had this really bad habit of hoarding. So I would take all the money I had, go to the grocery store and spend every dime I had on everything, and then it would go to the house, and then not realizing that, okay, I did not need to spend that much money on the food because now I'm broke. Right. So, that took me a lot of years to get over that. And it was more like a hoarding thing. And when we moved, we had 4 deep freezes, and in 2 of the deep freezes, our grocery store would put bread on clearance. So it'd be like 50% off. I would go and buy pretty much every loaf of bread that they had on the shelf and throw it in the deep freeze. But we never ate it, so it would get freezer burnt. But it made me feel better knowing that it was just there, so. But it was like a really bad hoarding situation, and I've got it under control because now I make sure that we buy what we need and we're more careful about it. But growing up, my parents never did that, right? So it's just it was like a fight to the death for the last can of Alpha-Getty in the cupboard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was pretty bad, but we just that's why I got into it, because I never wanted my kids to ever have that. And then when we started getting smarter about it, then it became...
We had a plan.
Then we had a plan. Yes.
And then it was our passion.
Yes.
And then it's the thing we live for. And now we have half a year's supply of dry food in 5-gallon buckets in Mylar bags that we've almost... Yeah, we're going to double that up this year to make it a year. But
but 15 years ago, I would have just thrown bags of noodles on the shelf, to the point where they were so stale that if you cooked them, they would just crumble into pieces, right?
We would have
and the expiry date would have been ridiculous on them, and
we would have went in and be like, we went to Walmart and they would have had duck sauce for 3 cents a can, and I've never eaten duck sauce, I don't know what it is, but they would have had it, and we're like, holy shit, that's a great deal. So we'd buy 75 cases.
What was that? Was it soy sauce we bought that one time?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How are you going to do with 30 jars of soy sauce?
And it was the real stuff that tastes like fermented, I didn't enjoy it. But and this stuff would follow us. We moved a lot years ago. So we'd go from house to house. And we're like, why do we have this? So, it all came out of desperation.
It was like these big jars of soy sauce. Yeah, and I think we bought 30 of them.
Yep.
I said, what the hell are we going to do with
these? We had some blocks of lard and shortening. The fucking stuff had been for 10 years before.
We had a box, a thing of shortening that I think we still had that I brought from out east.
Yeah.
And I think we just threw it away a year and a half ago because it was in the back of the cupboard. We didn't know it was there. But it was so gross. It had leaked through and it was all oily.
Oh my gosh.
You guys turned in tonight for the real shit. I'm telling you, we're spreading the real dope tonight because this is true. This is all true shit.
Yeah, it's all true.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. With gardening, I got into it because I just enjoyed it. And then it came to where, oh my gosh, I have to have a garden because we're going to starve because the grocery stores are empty. So I would plant everything and we wouldn't hardly, I'd have one tomato plant that would have 1 tomato, but thank God I had that 1 tomato because
yep. I had strawberry jam and mustard pickles on my shelf,
and
I don't even eat mustard pickles, but I was sure I could survive the zombie apocalypse.
He won't eat pickles. Yep. He hates pickles.
I haven't canned pickles in 2 years because there was one year that that's all I did was can pickles. And we eat them like once a year. We bring out a jar of pickles.
Yep.
I saw a meme the other day. It said, for a small investment of $150, we're 5 to 6 weeks away from getting a single 25-cent piece of produce off our vegetables. I was like, yep. Right. If that doesn't sum up homesteading and gardening, I don't know what does.
Yes. So now this year, because I always do my own seedlings and start everything at home, this year was a huge fail. I have no idea what happened, so none of the stuff grew. But so we had lots of volunteer squash last year, and I thought we were going to survive all winter on squash, and they all rotted. I don't know what you were supposed to do with them, so I just left them on the shelf, and finally
just make you mad, though.
It's like, really? Like, I didn't eat it fresh because we were going to eat it later, and then there it was, all squishy and gross.
Tori says she wants to interview Becky, Erin, and Letty on parenting for a panel episode on the podcast.
You sure?
Yeah, you'd have fun. Yes, you guys. And Becky is going to be part of a women entrepreneurship panel at Self-Reliance Festival this year. So
nice.
I'm telling you. Yep. It'll be, we'll have to get you a name now. So
yeah, I get, well, was it last year? We were doing keto last year, and I don't know why I did it, but I went and bought a 50-pound bag of potatoes. I'm like, you don't eat potatoes when you're on keto. And so we put them down in this pantry and we cleaned them out last spring, and they were shriveled up. And the roots were probably about 8. There was like that much potato left out of 50 pounds, and I think the bag weighed like 2 pounds. That's all that was left. They were just air. It's like, I don't even know why I bought them, right?
We always try to support local people with their vegetables.
Yeah, because they were Anita's, and Anita does have good potatoes, but
we just never eat them. So there you go.
Yeah, no. I mean, I would come downstairs, and every day, because it was right next to the washing machine, I'd be like, I should probably get rid of these squash, but it's like, well, there might be one that I'll want to cook and then won't want to eat because it was next to all these. It was a mess.
And they smell too.
Oh, yeah.
Not as bad as potatoes, but yeah.
But yeah, some of them were like rock hard and empty inside, and it was like, what the heck?
Could almost carve them,
like
maybe.
I
should have made birdhouses or something.
Oh, that would have been good. Yeah. Would have looked like the turkey on Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Beautiful on the outside and nothing on the inside.
Yes. Here's our squash for dinner that no one wants to eat because I didn't even plant. They just grew themselves.
Yeah, we had that one garden that like we were just giving the cucumbers and the squash away because we had so much. And then the next summer I was like, oh, we're gonna double it. We're gonna have so much. We're not gonna know what to do with it. And all it did was rain, so the whole garden just molded. So we ended up with nothing, and I was so disappointed.
There was one year I planted my potatoes 3 times, and they rotted in the ground 3 times.
And that was the last time I had a garden. Then we had a garden here in our in the garden box outside, and we had tomato plants, and there were some that were taller than him, and he's 6'3".
Yeah,
not one tomato on them, but they were like 6 feet tall, and not one tomato. And I think out of all those plants, I think we had 2 handfuls of tomatoes, and that was it. And there were some plants we were pulling that had nothing. And I don't understand. Why do they grow so big and don't produce anything?
I know 2 years ago, I wanted to have tomatoes to make pasta sauce. So I saved all the tomatoes. Every tomato I pick, I'd put in a bag in the freezer. So in the spring, I had like 50 million pounds of frozen tomatoes that I then had to thaw. And I think I got like 4 jars of tomato sauce. And I was like, why am I doing this?
That's all I wanted. I just wanted to make I have my grandmother's chili sauce. And that's, I was like, okay, well, every year I plant like 3 pepper plants and a couple tomato plants just so I can have a couple jars of chili sauce. And I never end up with anything. So I said, well, I'm going to plant berries. And I planted berries last year. And then this jackass decided to plant comfrey in the...
No, it was Chris Dixon's fault. He gave them to me. No,
he planted them, and they like choked out my raspberries and my blueberries. So I got to transplant them this year. But yeah, I didn't get anything. But
we got lots of comfrey though. Did really good with that.
because you can eat that.
You can't eat that.
I make my mouth numb.
Humphrey salad, yeah. Feel fuzzy. All right, so you were into the prepping before Tim, because that was one of my questions, is if you kind of got it from him or if it was kind of brought together. Let's see. So what did you first think when Tim started asking you to kind of co-host some of the live streams?
That's a good one.
I was nervous. I was, because I don't speak at all. Like when I was in high school, I took English classes, and my public speaking things, my teacher allowed me to record it on a tape and hand it in, because I couldn't go up in front of a class because I go beet red, and I was so embarrassed, and I just couldn't do it. And then but then when I started coming on, now I'm like, I enjoy it. I like coming on now, and
I will tell you, I can see a huge difference from when, I mean, even from the beginning of like I keep calling it This Is Us, but it's The Last of Us.
Yes.
The beginning of those ones to now, I mean,
Getting her on every Friday's helped a lot.
It has helped a lot. And I actually stood up at LFTN with the microphone.
I heard.
Yeah, which like 15 years ago. No,
well, I mean, even
have probably got me there, but
I mean, I think even last year was more like you were just there because you were on, out of town with Tim.
Yeah. And
then you just kind of found your spot.
Yeah. Like I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's an age thing. Mm. You know how you get past like the certain age where you just don't give a shit anymore, right? Just, I don't know. Like, I think I'm at that point now where because like growing up, you're always worried about what people think or what people are going to say or what they're going to judge, or, oh, if I'm wearing, and of course with me, like my face would go always beet red. So I'm like, oh, they're going to know. And I'm like, oh, am I wearing the right clothes or anything like that? And then ever since we've opened the daycare and we went through a little bit of the hurdles, and then I had an incident with a parent where most of the time I would because I'm a people pleaser. So I'm just like, okay, I let people treat me like shit and talk down to me and everything. And then I got to the point where I'm like, I basically kicked her out and her kids out. And I said, no, you're done. I'm not dealing with. And then ever since then, it was kind of like, you know what? People aren't going to talk to me like that anymore. And then I got to the point where I'm just like, I just don't give a shit what people think about me anymore. Yeah. Like they either like me or they don't. And
people love you on the show. Jesus. When we did the live, what was it? I think it was the one in Minot where we did a couple of those, the Stranger Than Fictions, where you were talking about the cheerleaders who got shot when they were possibly buying dope or whatever, and you went on a Becky rant.
Have we had any more about
No,
that?
I haven't heard anything.
You know why? It's because I bet you they were buying drugs and the news has dropped it. Right?
There you go.
Yeah.
But I was trying to think. I think the first episode I had you come on with me was the Amazon subscriptions episode, maybe, where we talked about how we used Amazon subscriptions to prep.
Yeah.
And that was a good one. You were nervous, and I just let you do your thing.
But I find this is actually pretty good because like you can read the questions, but you can't feel any eyes looking at you.
Yeah.
So that makes it a lot easier. But because I find when you're talking to a crowd and you make eye contact with certain people, you're just like, oh,
yeah. Wait a minute, what am I doing?
Yeah, like, and then you kind of clam up and you don't know what you're going to say anymore. But I find that that's even passed with me quite a bit.
Yeah, you're doing great, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know when we first started even just doing the podcast, I mean, it was just Nate and I just, BSing back and forth. And I was nervous. Like, it was weird, knowing that this is going to be recorded and sent out and everything. But yeah, that it's gotten a lot easier. And now it's just,
so you know the market.
Oh, probably. But the way we talk on here, this is how Tim and I always are. Like when we're in the car, like driving long distances, we talk like this all the time. And it's like, sometimes we'll just get on a rant or something about it and we just talk back. So it just kind of, it's just like I'm talking to him. So it's kind of like the same.
That's what makes it fun because, like I said, we just spent 70 hours in the vehicle together, and I would say 30 of them she was awake. So during those 30 hours, we never run out of things to talk about.
No, you should hear some of our conversations. They're pretty wild.
Well, maybe we'll do an interstate live stream sometime.
Yeah,
but
like just random stuff. And you're just like, do we really just have a conversation about that? But they're fun. So
yeah, I know there's a lot of times where Nate and I are going back and forth like, wait a minute, stop. We need to write this down or at least go down and record because it'll never sound the same.
Yeah.
Haas has a question. We can come back to that after I start it, so don't let me forget, and we'll come back to Haas's question later, Erin. So
okay. All right, let's see. I gotta see what I've asked. I did have some questions that I got from the audience prior to this.
Oh yes. Oh, this should be good.
What is the best thing that you guys have ever cooked for each other?
Oh man.
Tim doesn't cook.
I have been known to cook in the past.
He is the cook.
Yes, I am Tim. Yeah. So what about the very first meal? Well, that I cooked. Remember when I cooked that special meal for you?
Yeah, our first date.
Yeah, it wasn't our first date, but it was close. Yeah. Go ahead, tell that story.
It was our first official date because our first technical date was we were with a group of friends and we went to the club and we were all drunk, right? And
then we set up and talked till the sun came up.
Yeah, so, but that wasn't technically a date. Like our first official date that he asked me out. Then he made lasagna and Caesar salad and cherry cheesecake.
And it was good.
And it was very good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I can cook. It's just that
and that was the only meal that I've ever had. So.
Fuck off. Ain't that something?
It's true. I swear, like when we moved in together, I don't think this man, like he bakes. Like he would make bread and cinnamon rolls and dinner rolls. He makes everybody wanted him to make his dinner rolls for Christmas and Thanksgiving. And but as for like meal, like if it's a barbecue, he'll barbecue them. But as for like meals,
I make a killer risotto. I haven't made that in a few years.
Geez,
but man, I make
a few years.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
it's been like 8 years.
That,
So, but no, he doesn't. But now, like,
we don't.
It's a confession.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like I'll be at work and he'll message me and he'll be like, "What's for dinner?" And I'll be like, "Subway." And that's basically.
We're usually coming and going both ways, you know. But
yeah.
I'm trying to think. I mean, there's lots of things that she makes for me. Recently, it's probably the sausage and gravy, the biscuits and gravy that you make are just fucking incredible. But
I make a good shepherd's pie.
You make a great shepherd's pie, great roast beef. I'm trying to think what else that the shepherd's pie is just so good, so good, salty and full of mushroom soup, and it's good. There's nothing she cooks that isn't good, and I'm not just saying that. Like it would be hard to shit on a shingle. I remember but
since the 3 older kids have moved out, the twins are a completely different personality, and like I don't think the children eat. Like,
they graze like cattle.
They graze.
Good. So that is normal. Okay, good.
It is.
Yeah, but like when when all 5 of them were home, it was like we had a sit down dinner every night. And especially when I was home.
Oh yeah.
And then we always had like the big dinner on Sundays, like the roast beef or the roasted chicken and the mashed potatoes and the vegetables. But we haven't done that in
we always tell this story, but when the 3 older kids, they all moved out within a year, within a year. And when they moved out, we moved into a much smaller house. So there was no bedrooms for them to move back to. And we don't have a kitchen table anymore. So that's kind of changed the dynamics of the house a little bit, you know. So
we replaced them with dogs.
Yeah. So as the kids moved out, we replaced them with dogs. But yeah, we have a small kitchen here. It's a nice kitchen, but it's like, okay, do you want a place to hang your coats or do you want a small kitchen table? So we have a place for hanging our coats.
But we did have a kitchen table when we first moved in, and nobody ever.
We never used it.
It was all it was just a junk collector.
Yeah.
We would just collect everything. So and then you get to the point where you're like, no, it's getting out of control.
Yeah.
But I'll still I'll still cook stuff once in a while. But
usually on the weekends. But she works. She works more than me as far as like the 9 to 5 kind of work and stuff goes. Because she has. Well, no, you don't have to be at the daycare.
No, well, the last
week
I have because I'm behind on everything. But,
yeah.
But when I'm there late, we have a restaurant in town called Mike's. So it's either Mike's, Dairy Queen, A&W, or Subway. That seems to be unfortunately.
For me, it's a pack of pepperoni sticks. So.
How old are the twins again?
They just turned 13.
Okay.
13 going on 30.
Yeah. They, I don't know, they're in this whole where they're eating like yogurt and fruit stage. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I make the big meal, and they're like, "Oh, Mom, make extra so we can have leftovers." And they'll sit in the fridge for an entire week, and then I end up throwing them out. So I'm just like, I'm not.
And they almost always eat before we get home. So they get home from school around 3:20, 3:30, and they'll have eaten. I'm usually home by 4:30. They've almost always eaten before me. So, try to get the house. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. No,
that's fine. Growing up, we always were sitting at the table. Like 6:00 was dinner time. And we all sat. I had one brother, and we just always sat at the table. And so that's what I always thought you were just supposed to do. And we've done it for a long time, but my little one is so picky that she just doesn't want to eat dinner. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I guess go do something else and you'll eat eventually.
Yeah, because kids will eat. They'll always eat eventually. So.
Well, I think the whole Sunday meal thing is kind of going away for a lot of people, right? Like, because everybody's so busy, and I would much rather hang out with the kids outside and the dogs outside than be in the house for hours cooking a big dinner and then another hour or two washing dishes and cleaning up afterwards. Like, who wants to spend their only 2 days off doing that every weekend?
That's our chill time, is out under the covered deck in our lounge chairs with the dogs around and the girls hitting us with volleyballs.
No, hitting you.
Hitting me with volleyball. But that's our fun for sure.
Yeah, like I spend most of my Saturday folding 12 loads of laundry. I don't want to be doing 6 hours of dishes, right?
Yeah. I know we homeschool, so we have like no schedule. There's no like, this is breakfast, and then you go to lunch. It's just,
Yep. Hey, as long as they're happy and they're eating, that's all that matters.
Yep.
Not driving you crazy. That's.
Well, they're still doing that too.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet?
Do you want to tell the story or do you want me?
I can tell the story.
All right.
No,
then I'll tell you the truth after. So.
I'll tell you. I had just moved back to Digby because we had lived in Digby before.
Which is in Nova Scotia.
Yeah. And I had just gotten out of a pretty crappy relationship. So I was like at that point where I just swore off men. I was like, nah, I'm done. I don't want any more to do with them. I'm just going to work, do my shit, And my sister, who's Amy, she's like, well, let's go downtown. Her friend Mindy. And she goes, well, let's go out and we'll go drinking. And I'm like, okay, well, I haven't done that in like 3 weeks, but anyway, so we went out drinking, and Mindy was a hair stylist, and she had a key to a hair salon, so she let us. We went down there and we hung around. We were listening to music, and just because there's nowhere to go in Digby, right? So it's just, and so we were just sitting around, and then another friend showed up, was Anthony. It was Dennis.
It was Dennis, yeah.
It was Dennis.
His brother.
Yeah, and then were you with Anthony or Dennis?
Dennis.
Okay, so we were with Anthony. And so there was the four of us, and we were all drinking and everything. And then it had like a big picture window, and then Dennis and Tim were walking by, and Anthony said, "Oh, that's my brother." And so we were banging on the window, and we had them come over. And I think the whole time Amy was trying to set me up with Anthony.
Sure.
But I wasn't interested or whatever. And then they came in and we were all sitting around, and I remember saying to Amy, I said, "Who is that?" And then she said, "That's Dennis." I said, "Not Dennis, you idiot. The other one." Right?
Good looking one.
and then she goes, "I don't know who it is." then she hollered because she was drinking, and she goes, "Mindy, who's that?" Really loud. And then he's like, I'm Tim. And then after that, it was just like, then we went to the club, and I told Amy, I said, I think I really like him. I said, he's really good looking. And then she told Mindy and Anthony and Dennis. And then we were all on the dance floor dancing. And then when a slow song came on, they all scattered and left us on the dance floor so that we could dance together. Because we were just like, oh, okay, well, let's dance. And then after that, I gave you my phone number.
Yep.
And he had in his brain not to call somebody for 3
or 5 days. I can't remember. I'm like,
3 or 5 days.
I didn't want her to think I was too fucking interested.
Yeah, like I had his. He gave me his sweater because I was cold, and he didn't. So he didn't call me for like 3 or 5 days, and then after about 5 days, I was like, oh, well, I didn't hear from him. So I was like, okay, well, maybe he's not interested or whatever. And then I realized, because I was living with my parents, and then I realized, and then I came home the one day, and my dad, who's a complete moron, looks at me and he goes, "Oh, some Tim guy called for you."
This was a couple days ago, right?
And I said, "Well, when did he call?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't know, like 3 days ago." And I'm like, "You friggin' jackass." And then I said, "Well, did you get his number?" "Yeah, I wrote it in the phone book." The phone book was like this thick, and he wrote it on the top of one of the pages. So I'm going through trying to find what page he wrote the phone number on. and I found it, but then you never answered.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I think I left you a voicemail. But then I didn't hear back from you.
I think my cell phone got disconnected. I'm pretty sure. No,
you had no minutes.
Right, yeah.
He had no minutes, so he couldn't check his messages. So I'm just like, okay, whatever. So then I said to Amy, I said, well, I got to take his sweater back anyway. So if he's going to be an asshole, I don't want nothing to do with him. So I went into Home Hardware where he was working, and I gave him his sweater. And then when I walked in there, his face went red as a tomato. He was so embarrassed. And then I'm like, well, here's your sweater. And I think I was a little snarky because he hadn't called me. And then he was like, and then you said something about, well, I'll call you later. And then he called. So, and then after that, it was like, I don't think we were ever apart after.
Yeah, I think it was about a week. So we met that first night. We stayed up until, I remember, so we sat out front. Her parents were renting an old Victorian home. So we left the bar about 1 o'clock and we went and sat on the front steps until 5:30 in the morning when the sun started coming up. And then I finally went home. And then, about a week later when we finally...
Wait, then you went home and then you went and had breakfast with your mom.
I went and had breakfast with mom and dad. And because I had sworn women off too, like the weekend before, we went to a friend's wedding in the city and we went to every bar. And anyway, it was just nothing, right? Nothing. And so I'm like, well, that's it. I'm just going to be single and have my cat for the rest of my life. That's what I figured. So, and anyway, so I met her. And my mom, having tea with mom, watching Law and Order. That's what it would have been. And so anyway, we went out to Josie's place for breakfast that morning. I told mom, I said, hey, I think I met somebody. She's like, oh, okay, sure. I said, no, I really do. I really like her. And like I said, a week later, we got together again. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we spent a night apart ever since.
But I still lived with my parents. So I would, and I was only working part-time.
Yeah.
So I would make him baked. Like I had this thing in my brain that I wanted to start doing baking. Yeah. Remember? And I was
right, yeah.
So I was trying out all these new recipes. So every day when he would come home from work, I had a plate outside his door with all kinds of baked goods for him to try.
She would come over and stay to my place until sometimes she'd fall asleep. She'd stay till 12 or 1 in the morning. Then she'd wake up and go home. She had to get ready for work in the morning. And, there was another part of the story I was going to tell. Oh, yeah. So she had a vehicle and I didn't. So I was dirt broke. Poor, like nothing. She had a very fancy Dodge Neon.
Yes.
So eventually she trusted me with her car. And
the look on his face, I'm like, I got to go to work. And he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, well, aren't you going to drive me? And he's like, you want me to drive your car? And I'm like, yeah, just make sure you come pick me up. I don't care.
Yeah, but there's a better part to this story. So the very first time she gives me her car, this has never happened to me in my life. I sat down on the couch waiting for her to get done from work and I fell sound asleep. I slept in, so she had to start walking. It was a long walk, and I was about a half hour late picking her up. I thought she was just going to dump me right on the side of the road, but Oh, we did good. So
Yeah.
that was funny. And then, so we met on August 26th, I believe, right around there.
August 27th.
August 27th, and we got engaged on Christmas Eve. So less than 4 months we were engaged, and we were married a year to the day that we met.
Wow.
So we didn't fuck around. Well, you know.
And then what?
Your story.
And how many years will it be?
What are we married now? 17?
17 or 18, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Getting on 2 decades now. So
not long enough.
Oh, and somebody wanted to know when Tim had hair. So yes, I had.
His hair is ridiculous.
It was brown, a little bit curly, and it had blonde frosted tips. We met. So
well, and then and that
this was 2004.
Well, that was part of the story. Like it was all curly up here.
Oh yeah, that.
And he used to style it, and he said to me because he didn't have any money, and he goes, "Could you cut my hair for me?" I was like, "I don't know how to cut hair because I used to do my dad's hair, but it was just a buzz cut." And I'm like, "Well, I could try," and I screwed it up so bad. And I'm just like, "Why don't we why don't I just buzz it for you?"
So she took me to a hairdresser, and he fixed it up, and after that, she buzzed it every time. I was cool with that.
Yeah. Oh, I messed it up so bad, and it was like short here and long here. Oh, it was because I've never cut hair in my life, just the buzz cuts.
I bet you there's a picture of that Halloween party when we were first dating. That's where I had.
I bet you I have.
I could probably
show
find
up on
it.
there.
It might, or if you can bring it up, yeah. I probably we could probably share it, but we can keep asking questions. We can probably bring it up on Facebook while we're at it here.
Yes,
so,
I bet you I could.
But yeah, so yeah, that's our story, and I'm sure we have lots of other stories. But I was pretty proud of getting married 1 year to the day we met. I thought that was pretty cool. So.
Well, my grandmother always said that if a man doesn't give you a ring within 6 months, they're not worth keeping around. That was my
Nate.
Yeah. So.
Luckily, Nate's sticking around.
Yeah, he's a pretty good dude. I mean, he's a bearded chick, right? So
yeah, that's true.
Are you looking for?
Try. Let's see who gets the question first here.
Well, I had one more question.
Okay.
And it was, how do you handle the in-laws? That was a question from the group.
Okay.
Must be nice.
Well, I'll go first.
You go ahead, sweetie.
Well, my dad, he passed away in 2011. So, it's hard to explain. My dad.
He loved people, but he wasn't a good dude.
Yeah, he wasn't a very he would do anything for you, but he wouldn't do anything for you. That kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
He loved the kids. He'd do anything for his grandkids. Anything. Growing up, we weren't very structured. By time I had met Tim, I had moved 46 times. So, and that was because my mom was a gypsy and she would move around a lot. And I went to 5 different elementary schools, and I just I never had any friends, and we didn't have that. That's a little bit.
Yeah.
We didn't have any real structure. Anyway, and so because my main structure was my grandmother, and she passed away in 98. So, but when I met Tim, and then we went to his parents' house, I couldn't fathom that somebody was actually born and raised and still lived in the same house in the same town. I didn't even know that happened. I was just and of course, and his dad, because my dad could never hold a job. He could never do any of that. And then, but his dad worked at the same job for 40 years. I was what is that? Right? I'd never met any of it. And his mom was the same way, just kind of, they were just so, to me, it felt like it was like a TV show because they were so normal. Right. And it was just I love mom and dad. I don't talk to them as much as I probably should.
That's my mom and dad she's talking about.
Yeah, that's his mom and dad. I love them to death, and I wish I probably should talk to them more. I'm not it's just I feel bad when I don't talk to them. But they there's one of you and Mac. Your hair is all crazy in that one. But but we don't like, but they live in Nova Scotia, which is 5,000 kilometers away, or how many miles is that?
Yeah, 3,500 or
3,500
something.
miles away. So we don't get to see them all that often, and but like I don't have any issues with them at all, like none at all. They're good people. They've always supported us. They always, like whenever we tell them something, like they don't ever like, oh, well, they're not judgy. Like they're good people. And when I first met them, I was in awe of them, right? but other than that, like there's nothing bad I could ever say about them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I don't know where to go from there, but it is what it is. Like I said, Becky's dad was he meant well. He had a lot of issues. He's been passed for 12, 13 years now. He's been gone. So he died young. He was 51. Yeah. Never get to meet her grandmother, but she sounded like a pretty fucking incredible old lady.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. My grandma was pretty, I'm just like my grandmother. She was pretty incredible. Like Tim gets pretty, like my mom's lives one street over from us, and she works at the daycare, and there's all this crazy hair.
Oh my.
So there was me there. It's pretty hard to see. There's a picture of us if you can find the Halloween party picture, that was when we were very first dating. This is a little while after, but there was a little bit of frosted tips you can see there.
And that's our oldest girl, Olivia, and that's our middle girl, Gracie, there.
And then here's another one. There's a little better one for you there.
That's
I was starting to bald a little bit there, but I was still trying to keep it kind of what's the word? Like there was no frosted tips there, but I was still using gel for whatever reason. So, so if Becky can find it, I'll show it to you. But in case anybody wanted to see, those are a couple of pictures of me when I was much younger. So less handsome, but younger. So let's get rid of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the Halloween. I know it's in here.
Yeah. So, do you have a favorite cocktail? No, but she has a favorite drink. What's your... Well, okay. When we first met, you were drinking. It's a fruit wine, like a sparkling fruit wine, but it was what's the name of that brand that you like so much? Arbor Mist. Not real expensive, but you liked it is the holiday train, Nate. Yeah, he noticed that picture there. The holiday train was in there. So that was the year. I'll bring this back up for a minute. So years ago, we moved. We sold everything we had and moved to Saskatchewan, thinking it was going to be better. I took a job, sight unseen, at a hardware store. Thought it was going to be great. And 6 months later, we tucked tail and moved back to Nova Scotia. So, we made some memories. We got to see the holiday train for the first time. This was Christmas of 2007. So that is 16 years ago. And so it's funny how life changes, but. And you think things are going to go the way you think they're going to go, and then they don't. Mm-hmm. But as far as a favorite cocktail, she's not. I have made old fashions for her, but she says they're a little strong.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try it with just a shot of bourbon next time. I think she'd like it because she's had sips of mine before that she really liked.
Yeah, there's not really.
But
I like pina coladas.
Yes.
And
But at Christmas, I usually pick her up a bottle or two of Arbor Mist. The blackberry Arbor Mist was your favorite, wasn't it?
I can't find those.
Oh, yeah.
And what's that, the greens, the key lime slushy stuff? I like, is that margaritas?
Margaritas, yeah.
Yeah, I do like those.
Yeah. So anything fruity and sweet and icy like a slush.
And doesn't have that gross alcohol aftertaste. I can't handle that.
You ever had a mudslide, baby? Haas is asking.
I have had a mudslide. That's what
those are good.
That Rod used to make.
Yes.
That's Kahlua and milk, right?
Yeah.
No. My friend used to make those, and I would hang out with him, and it looked like, I think a lot of it is because he told me it was chocolate milk, and then I went and I drank it, and I'm like, oh, you suck, and I was like, no, I couldn't, and I have to be careful with my dairy intake too, but I find when you go to drink it, it has that that burny alcohol in the throat.
Yep.
So I have a hard time with that.
I thought maybe it'd be one of my. I got one more picture here for you. I'll show you this one since we're doing this here. So
Yeah, that's our wedding picture.
There's our wedding photo. So
Aw.
that was yeah. And again, there was a little bit of frosted tips there, but there's one picture of me wearing what looks like one of those blue sweaters that that the Gen X grunge kids would wear, and but it was 2004. And I had frosted tips. It was a good picture. So if it turns up, it turns up.
Yeah, I've got thousands of pictures. So
and here's this. That's such an awful picture of me. But that was at Amy and Barrett's wedding. So I don't know what was going on. I think I shaved my head that day.
I think you did. That was an awful picture.
That was an awful picture. So I just wanted to know if any of our parents, grandparents, or siblings prepped. No, I would say my parents were the opposite of preppers.
Yeah, my grandmother did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my grandmother, you want to tell a little bit? Yeah.
My grandmother, she had a giant pantry in her basement. And when I used to grocery shop in her basement because she always would stock up on things that I liked. But when she passed away, and we were cleaning out her deep freeze, it was the same. I think it was along the same lines as hers was like a hoarding situation because she grew up, because my grandmother was American, and she grew up during the later Depression years. So there were times that the only time she had fruits and vegetables was when she went to her grandparents' farm. So and she refused to eat beans because that's all her mother would feed them was beans. And she wouldn't even buy them and put them in her pantry. And so hers turned into a hoarding situation too. It's the same way. When she passed away, we cleaned out her deep freeze. And I am not over exaggerating. She used to take hamburger and make hamburger patties out of it. And she would wrap them in tinfoil and then saran wrap. And I think she had hamburger patties in the bottom of that freezer that were probably 30 years old.
Wow.
And she would just keep stacking and stacking. It did not look normal for hamburger patties. It was like the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. But they were just on the bottom, and like she would just keep stacking food and food and food, and same with, and it was the same thing. It's because she grew up with nothing, so she just didn't, and it's not like she ever ate a lot because when she passed away, she was 4'11" and she weighed like 81 pounds, right? So she was just this little tiny thing, and she never ate, but she used to stand in the kitchen and eat an entire head of lettuce. Because when she was a kid, she could never get lettuce.
Yeah.
So like it was really like she had her strange little habits, but she did. But my parents never prepped anything. We've got my sister starting.
Oh yeah. Her and Barrett do great. They're doing
good, but other than that, like I didn't have any other relative. Like I grew up in a city, so none of my relatives ever did anything like that. None of them ever had like farm animals or anything. So it's just my parents lived paycheck to paycheck, and it was totally basically it was by time the next paycheck came, cupboards were bare. There was nothing. Yeah.
My parents were never preppers for sure. My dad grew up poor. My mom not so much, but my dad grew up. He was one of 9 brothers and sisters, and they still had an outhouse attached to their front, like to their entranceway when they were a kid. Like you'd go out through the woodshed, and the porch was attached to the house, and they'd go out there. And I mean, he used Sears catalog pages for toilet paper, so that tells you how. So they knew how to get by. So they worked. Dad worked really hard to make sure Mom and Dad worked really hard to make sure that me and my sister always had stuff. So, I heard about it from Dad, but no, there wasn't. And my grandmother, she grew up during the Depression, and she could make, she could stretch $1 into $3. Like she knew that. But I wouldn't say there was anybody who was not even close to being a prepper for sure. We're kind of the first ones, but we've tried to encourage it. It's hard to get Mom and Dad to do it. Things like I'd love to see them keep a little gas on hand for the generator, that kind of stuff. But you can only try to help people, right? So, yeah. And they want to know if you like pina coladas and walking in the rain. You remember that song? Do you like
yeah. No, actually, I despise the rain. I do not rain at all. So, because rain brings mud, and mud brings messes, then causes me just to like basically sleep with my mop. So I just I hate the rain. I can't do it.
Haas says liver and onions is what our grandma always made us. Haven't touched it in years. Yeah, Dad's a good cook, but he used to make liver when I was a kid, and they would overcook it. But I can't touch liver. I've tried. I've gone back multiple times and said, I'm going to try this. I'm going to like it. And I can't even swallow a bite. So
that's funny, because every time I go to my grandma's house, she was always trying to cram bologna sandwiches down.
Ooh.
And I hate bologna. And every day she'd be like, I'd go there every day and she'd be like, you want a bologna sandwich? And I'm like, Grandma, I don't like bologna. And I'll just have peanut butter and jelly. Next day, you want a bologna sandwich? I'm like, Grandma, I don't like bologna. Stop trying to feed me your bologna. It's like, it was so gross.
Yozik wants to know if you're going to get your ham radio license.
No, probably not.
You won't. And that's okay, because I'll always have it. So
yeah.
So we're working on it. But no, I really doubt she ever would. Yeah.
No, and I think that's another thing. I had PTSD. My dad had a CB radio.
Yeah. Meat cutter, right? Or no,
meat cutter.
Yeah.
Oh, he had a CB radio, and I think it traumatized me, because when I was a kid, he would offer to give my friends a ride home, and he would be talking on the CB radio, and it's like, it was so embarrassing. And it was like, so I'm just like, I'm never having one of those in my car. And then when he mentioned the ham radio, I said, that's not going in the car.
Yeah, she was so worried it was going to be like this. Yeah, it was quite funny.
I was so mad because I thought he was going to put it in the car. And like, it's because it had like this ridiculous huge antenna on the top of this Caravan. And it was ridiculous. And I'm like, if you put that in the car, I said, I'm never going anywhere with you. So.
My grandfather was big into CB, and his handle was Cookie Monster.
Oh, there it is.
You found it?
I found it.
Here, send me the link, and I'll bring it up. Can you?
How do I do that?
Hang on here. Go ahead. You tell. Want to?
Is it?
There we are. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. Hang on. I'm going to turn the light off on my, and then I'm going to bring me up here.
Can you send it to you?
I probably could, but I gotta.
That's me.
Oh, that's just you. Okay. So, you know what? Just hang on here just a second.
Yeah.
Do you, let's bring this back up. Sorry, guys, for everybody there we are. So,
I can probably screenshot it and send it.
Yeah, send it. Yeah. Just send me the link through to message. Okay. Yeah. So, so he was big into into the CB radio. He was meat cutter. Gramps was Cookie Monster. It was a thing in the 70s that everybody got into. And even my dad would always make fun of CB radio. He always thought it was so cheesy and everything. So here we go. All right. So if anybody has stuck with us this whole time, here's the money shot for you. So there is that. Can you see the blonde tips right there? I can just hear. I can hear Renegade Butcher right now hitting screenshot. He's going to have fun with this one. So this was in the hallway of my apartment when we first met, and this was the Halloween party, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I threw a Halloween party there, and we it was a good time. But so that was us, very young, very much. Maybe not as in love as we are now, but we were as in love as we could be at that age. So
yeah, and I think I'm holding Mike's.
Mike's Hard Lemonade or something like that. So yeah, it was. Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
that was
you look like you're 12 years old.
Where the hell did those years go? My God. I look like I've aged 40 years, and but so there you go, guys. That was it. You know what? I'll post that on Instagram.
That's what kids do to you.
Yeah. Do you see that? There was hair.
This is what kids do.
5 years, 5 kids later, and this is what's left. So,
yeah.
I went into the hardware store today, and Rod, I love him. He great guy. There's something special about your small town hardware store. And so Becky bought me a hat when we were in Tennessee, a couple hats, the wide brimmed hats that they're like a Tilly hat. Dawn recommended me getting one because when we were in Tennessee, I burnt the whole top of my head to the point where it got scabby, and I'll never do that again. So I wore the hat today. I went in and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I got to cover up my bald head." And Rod's in his 70s and still has a luscious set of hair.
He's got a lot of hair.
And I told the story, my dad held on to a comb over for a lot of years. He's like, "Oh, I'm just going to keep, combing it over." And you go in the wind, it would go,
It was like it looked like dreads.
It was like 4 pieces of hair that he would just, So eventually we talked him into buzzing his head and left it. And so I said, there ain't no way I'm ever going to do a comb over. And so we just started buzzing it because, kids will do that. It's like Homer. Every time he found out Marge was pregnant, more of his hair would fall out.
Well, he'd rip it.
Yeah. So, it was fun. So, I'll post that on, that's great. It's funny because that was pre-digital cameras. Those were film.
That was an actual picture. Yeah.
And there's one more picture of me, you, and the kids on the steps of that old church.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll find that sometime. But there it is in case anybody wants to see. So
yeah.
So everybody they showed up to see Erin's interview, and they got to see young Tim and Becky when we were. Mm-hmm. Yep. Broke as a joke, but madly in love, right?
Yeah.
Well, what do you think, Erin? You did really well. This was Renegade says I may have had to slide back on the video. Of course he did. But hour and a half, and you didn't even seem like 10 minutes, did it?
Yeah.
And you weren't nervous at all, were you?
Oh, well, I'm not going to say that.
You did wonderful, like really good. I'm proud of you. We'll have to get her. Well, maybe me and Becky and you and Nate could do a 4-person live stream some night. We could, I don't know what we could talk about, but we'll have a lot of fun. So Amy said, great questions and lots of stories. Stories are fun. Hey, it's always fun. So, well, I don't know how I should close this out, but thank you guys. This was a lot of fun. I love reminiscing, but I'm glad that we got to get Erin on here and get a little more comfortable. And if you ever want to do it again, you can. But now I expect you to do another interview with somebody else. Yeah. So I can't wait to hear your interview on, it doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. But I love hearing it because you guys are, you're awesome. And Yozik says, I can't wait to hear Erin, Amy, and Becky do a show. Yeah, that would be fun. You guys are great. Yeah. Yeah. I listened to Amy and Nicole today, their Spicy Sisters episode, and they always have a lot of fun. They do get a little spicy, but I appreciate that. So. But thank you, Erin. This was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yeah. So, guys, what do we got? Tomorrow night will be a Saturday night show. What it's going to be about yet, I'm not 100% sure. It'll probably be about the absolute circus that life has been since we came back from Tennessee. And
my goodness.
I'll fill you in on what's happening, where we're heading. And, and then Sunday night is great. It's going to be a cool guest. I've got a former weather forecaster, and he's now a documentary filmmaker coming on. And he did a documentary called The Last House Standing. And it's all about natural disasters coming in and wiping out communities and people not being prepared for it. So it could be cool. He is from a little bit outside the prepping community, so we will see where the conversation leads. But I'm excited about bringing on new people that we haven't heard from before. So it'll be a good time. So, Erin, thank you. Mrs. Toolman, you're as beautiful as ever. I always love you coming on the show. And guys, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.